Now that your machine is threaded, I'm going to show you how to choose your stitch and set your tension. As you can see, I've changed the thread color back to a lighter color so that you're going to be able to see it well when I start to sew on my cardstock, since my cardstock is a little bit darker and brighter. But before we get started, I wanted to show you that you have different options when it comes to stitching. You can either use a straight stitch or you can use a zigzag stitch. And in this case, I'm going to use stitch G. Stitch G is the perfect stitch length for when you have two pieces of paper that you want to bring together and they're a 1/4 inch apart. So for example, if your back piece of cardstock is 5.5 by 4 1/4, and then the piece that you lay on top of that is 5 1/4 by 4, this would be the perfect length stitch to go in between them and fill it in just perfectly. So I'm choosing zigzag stitch G. Now I wanted to tell you a little bit about the tension dial. This is the tension dial. And tension is when you have an even stitch look on the front and the back. That's where your tension is set perfectly. If the bobbin thread, the bottom thread, shows up on the top, then your tension is too tight and you need to lower the number. So you could take it from 4 to 3 and see if that helps, or from 3 to 2, see if that helps. Now if the needle thread shows on the bottom side of the fabric too much, then you want to turn the dial to a higher number, and that will tighten the tension. So if it's on 4 and it's just not looking right, try bringing it up to 5 and seeing if that makes a difference. Okay, so now let me show you what I do when it comes to cardstock. I'm going to sew 2 straight lines here, 2 zigzag lines just straight across. But I don't want to gunk up my needle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply my tape just down the center of my piece of patterned paper and attach it onto my cardstock. Like that. This way, the area that I'm going to sew here is not really attached, and that gunk, the glue, won't get caught up in the needle and down into the bobbin area. At this point, I've chosen stitch style G, and I have my tension set at 4. I'm going to show you how to sew a zigzag stitch in a straight line, and then I'm going to show you how to sew a zigzag stitch around the perimeter of a card, turning at the corners. Okay, now we're ready to sew our first straight stitches. We are going to use a zigzag stitch, but we're only going to stitch in a straight line. And what I've done here is I've pulled my bobbin thread and my needle thread out from behind my presser foot, and I've positioned my cardstock, and then I've lowered my presser foot using this lever. Let's see if you can see this lever. This is the presser foot lever back here. When you raise it up, the presser foot comes up. When you put it down, the presser foot goes down. I'll show you that again. Up and down. So, again, let's position that. I'm going to raise the presser foot up. Now, the way I'm deciding where I'm going to sew is there is actually a line right here between my red cardstock and my patterned paper. I'm going to line that line up directly in the center of the presser foot. And as long as I keep it right in the center like that, there we go. As long as I keep it right in the center, it's going to give me a nice straight stitch, and I'm not going to have to worry about it being all wobbly and going all over the place. So I'm not going to back stitch on this because this is a piece that's going to be layered on top of another piece of cardstock. So I don't need to lock the stitches, but in the next demonstration I will be locking the stitches, so I'll show you how I do that. Okay, so to begin, we're just going to go ahead and go straight down, keeping that line right in the center of the presser foot. And And I'm stopping every once in a while just to make sure I'm lined up. It's okay, you can stop as much as you want. Okay. Make sure your needle is in the upright position before you raise the lever, and then you can pull that out and you can trim it with a pair of scissors. Now you can see I have a nice zigzag stitch going across, and it's very even because I used that line between the two pieces of paper and I matched it up with the line right in the center of the presser foot. Now, rather than locking this stitch, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to flip over my piece of cardstock and put a little piece of tape on there, and then just attach my thread to the back. And then you don't see any excess thread hanging, and you don't have to worry about locking the stitch on the end. Now this one I cut a little bit close. That's all right. I could still add a little bit of thread, a little bit of tape there, and just tape down my excess threads. Now when I glue that piece onto my card, I don't have any extra stitches on the side, so it looks very, very clean, but it won't unravel because all of this will be glued down on top of another piece. Now I can do that on the other side too. I can stitch this one going down, and I'm just lining that up next to that stripe. Make sure I'm in far enough, and away we go. Again, you've got to raise your needle up before you pull. And you can pull on that. A little extra room there. And there's my stitched other side. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to just trim off a little bit of the excess. And then I can either just use the tape that's already there to tape it down. And now when I place this piece on top of my other piece of cardstock, it looks very finished.